I think for this show I was trying to think about moving the figures, moving them out into the world beyond interiors. So this one is sort of where it starts, the interior, and then they kind of move into new spaces, being outside, being on the street or in a yoga class, and not only moving them physically, which I think my last show was sort of like the first time I did that, but moving them psychologically into spaces that are maybe more about maintaining like view inside of the picture, so they're looking towards each other. There's often multiple figures in these paintings, and a sort of contentment maybe that wasn't always there. I think also as I moved them into the physical space, I felt this need constantly to protect them. So I would start the paintings often in these sunny spaces and in just a normal kind of, outfit. And then often I felt the need to put coats on them, umbrellas, items of protection somehow, which I didn't realize until looking back at the show. I thought about the idea of cloud cover. The weather is kind of coming down on them as a heavy physical thing, a weight, and they have some sort of protection against that maybe. This one's also, even though that's an awning, sort of like that idea of the heavy top of the painting weighing down, this sort of like psychological weight. And so I felt that need to give them some sort of protection. Sometimes it starts from the impulse, like the sensory, where I'm in the kitchen in the dark and I think, oh wow, the way all these blues and grays are hitting each other is so interesting. Often it's like a sense of light or a sense of season, or even if it feels very sensory, not in a visual way, but like the way that it feels when snow hits your face or something like that. But then it's also not just remembering that moment that I want to go paint. I'll often start from just a ground. So like, for example, with this painting, I just put down this color, and then I'll see as I start to put down maybe just, this big dark shape, what am I starting to see that kind of bubbles up from the pigment. And as I started to maybe make this round shape, I saw this woman and she just kind of appeared, and I felt this relation to art history. So the absinthe painting, of course. And so painting towards some of those associations that come up and feeling like there's this sort of serendipitous moment. When I think about color in the works, I'm often drawn towards these muted colors, as a lot of the show is, but then when I'm reflecting back on what I've made so far, I often will say, okay, how can I challenge what I've done? And so when I noticed that so much of the work had that kind of muted palette that I'm so comfortable with, I started just putting down a ground that was very bright to work against. So with this painting, obviously I started it with this really electric kind of orangey color. And I didn't know exactly what the painting would be, but I'd been thinking about some of the paintings in art history too that I'm not as, I love, but I don't feel them so much as something that I relate to. So like a Caravaggio, the Baroque, the light. And so I thought, when do I see that, or how could I incorporate something like that that's so different than that muted kind of like rainy, silvery color that I'm often experiencing. And I thought of being out at night against the dark, and that warmth, that interior warmth, and it felt of a restaurant. It felt very much like what I was hoping to expand the paintings into this kind of like content psychological space where it's between the figures rather than just being isolated. So maybe each of them has their own kind of presence, but they're wrapped up in each other's glances.